This is the biggest problem with business school. So, if you guys are in your mid 20s, you can probably relate. I'm 25, almost 26. Got out of college, hell, what is it, 3 years ago now? So, been kind of got my footing in the real world now, and it's turned out to be harder than I thought it would be. I was a college athlete, so I kind of assumed when I was in college, hey, this is the hardest thing I'm ever going to do, going to practice and going to class. So anything that comes after this is not going to be a problem. But things are hard in different ways, right? So the college student athlete life was maybe really physically demanding, but for the most part, I didn't really have a whole lot of stress because I was doing this amazing thing. I was getting paid to go to school to do this amazing thing that I'd been training for so many years. And then I didn't care about class. Like, I wasn't in an ultra hard program. I was a marketing major. So I was smart enough, I'm not a genius or anything, but I was smart enough to pick up on these concepts and not really have to exert myself academically too hard to get grades that were more than good enough, right? And then I step out into the real world and I realize all this stuff I learned in business school isn't really helping me that much. And you know why? It's because I was taught to memorize a lot of different concepts across my different classes, but I feel like business class didn't do a great job in teaching me how to think. And when you get into the workplace, everything that you come across is situational, right? It's extremely rare if you get just a business degree and then you go work in a sales role or a management position or supply chain, whatever you're doing in business. Almost all the problems that you're going to face is going to be stuff that's at least a little bit different than the material you covered in your business class, right? It's problem solving. It's working through issues. It's fixing things for clients, for your bosses. It's making your direct reports' lives easier so they're more empowered to do their job. It's a lot of emotional intelligence, really. And I felt like my business program didn't do a great job in covering that side of things. So that's been my biggest takeaway now that I'm 3 years into my working career and 3 years out of college is didn't use a whole lot of those concepts, if I'm being honest. And I'm in a business job, I'm in an account management job where I'm doing a lot of things. And yeah, there were small things, right? Like, I think basic accounting principles, learning that in college was helpful. And that's something that sets you apart from even other people in office positions, right? Like, it's definitely not a given that people understand accounting. So if you can understand even just a basic managerial level of accounting, you're going to set yourself apart from a lot of other people. How to use Excel, that was another one. Just a basic working knowledge of this stuff, right? Like, you don't have to be an expert in anything, but just knowing the basics is going to set you apart from a lot of people. So I do want to give credit to both sides, right? Like, there are certain hard skills. Those are the two that come to mind for me, Excel and accounting, that business school does at least give you some basics in that you do use in the workplace. But apart from that, a lot of the concepts that I remember touching on in college, if I ever need them in my workplace, I usually just end up Googling it and refreshing my mind that way, right? As I said, pretty much all the situations that I face now are situational. They're specific to the industry I'm in. They're specific to the people that I'm working with, and so specific that a business program couldn't possibly touch on them. So in my opinion, the problem with school is that not just business school too, but right from when we start in elementary school, like 90% of the material we cover is based around this concept of a right, wrong answer. It's like you either got it or you didn't. But that's not how the world works. That's not how businesses function, right? And it's something I've learned. Like, if your boss comes to you with a problem that he needs you to solve, or your client comes to you with a problem that needs to be solved, there isn't one right answer. And that was probably the biggest struggle that I had in my first job out of college, was just wrapping my head around the concept that there isn't one right way to do this. There's hundreds of ways that you could do this successfully. It's just navigating the way that works best given that circumstance, given your strengths, given who your client is, given what your boss is looking for. But essentially, you're just looking to bring in revenue for your company and cut costs. And that's so open-ended, right? There isn't one right or wrong way to do that. That's why business is so difficult. That's why so many people fail in business, but it's also what makes business so exciting is it's open-ended. It's not like school. There's not a right and wrong answer. What I wish the school system would do a better job of is providing students from as early as first grade, getting away from the right and wrong. And of course, there's going to be a certain amount of that, right? You need basic arithmetic, you need spelling, you need chemistry, or do you even? I don't know. But you need certain basics, right? And I'm not arguing against that. But if in the school system we could start to incorporate more concepts that encourage students to think. The power of thinking and problem solving is the most important thing in the world, right? Because no two issues that you face in life are going to be the exact same thing. There may be similar principles, but if you have the concept in your head of how to approach problems and how to rationally think through things, then you're going to be able to solve anything, right? Like nothing's going to hold you back. Whereas there's only a certain amount of information that you can internalize and memorize. And unless you're in a very specific field, like a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, computer programmer, if you're just working a sales job, a management job in a business, then the stuff you're learning is not going to be that specific. Like, I think back to my college experience, there's only one project I did that really stands out to me that I found was really helpful and that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. All the other stuff, I don't even remember half of it now, and it's only been 3 years. But there was one project where we essentially had to create a proposal to bring an American company to an international market. And there wasn't even that many guidelines to the project, right? Like the professor just kind of wrote up a little thing and he said, go to it. And when you present, I'm going to grill you on everything. And by God, he did. And a lot of students in that class got really annoyed with him because they were getting grilled on numbers and things that they hadn't really thought about. I liked it. And, he grilled us pretty hard and I maybe got a little frustrated, but I realized that he was behaving in a way that a boss is going to behave in a corporate situation. I think he did that because he had a lot of business experience, where so many of our business professors have no real life experience. He did, and he was treating us how he would treat employees, right? The first thing I liked about the project was that it was an open-ended concept, very wide guidelines, and he allowed us to run with it to figure out a way to make this concept work in a way that seemed plausible. And then he grilled us really hard, right? Because that's what you realize when you're in a business is it's not just going to be a check mark all the time. Yeah, you got it right. No, like even if you have a proposal for your boss or for a client that seems reasonable, they're going to have questions and objections, and you're going to need to overcome those things, right? So business school should be way more open-ended, and I think that professors honestly should grill their students a little bit harder than just a simple yes/no answer. And this concept of the importance of how to think was really illustrated for me personally a couple weeks ago. I was having a conversation with my younger sister. She's quite a bit younger. She's like 16. She's 10 years younger than me. And at that time, she was having a disagreement with my parents about like a health issue. I'm not going to go into the details about it, but my parents very strongly wanted her to go in one direction. And as I understand it, they were just laying down the law. They weren't really having much of a dialogue with her. They were just telling her, nope, this is how we need to do it. This is what you're going to be doing. But she's getting to that age now at 16 where it's kind of a gray area, right? Like she's going to be in college in a couple years. And it's kind of that point where, well, do you really get to call the shots for my life, or do I have some autonomy over things? So she's explaining this situation to me, and I'm just thinking through it logically. My opinion was the same as my parents. I had the exact same view as them, but as a brother, I didn't tell her, like, I'm not going to tell her what she can and can't do, but I just asked her some questions in a way that got her thinking along the lines that my parents and myself were thinking. And in the end, she came to her own conclusion that the path that my parents wanted for her was going to be best for her. So she decided it of her own accord outside of her parents telling her what to do. That's so important for kids, teenagers, and even younger. And that's a concept, the ability to think rationally, that I hope to be able to impart on my own children if I'm blessed with kids. Not just laying down the law with them all the time, because I got a lot of that from my parents as well, and it didn't really rub me the right way a lot of times. Certainly, there are going to be times as a parent where you have to say no and you have to discipline and you have to punish. Those times will probably be difficult for me, but I hope that I'm able to just impart an ability to critically think through issues so that my kids come to their own conclusions outside of me just laying down the law. So that's my little rant for the day. I think the school system has a long way to go, but we're figuring it out, and I'm sure things are going to get better with time.